our esteemed panel. You guys, there are some amazing people here, so thank you for coming. Thank you for listening. I'm going to give each of them the opportunity to introduce themselves. Let us know if they identify as a patient, an activist, a doctor, or multiple. That's the panel you're at, if you're wondering. And you guys have 2 minutes.
Physician, and I'm also a I-502 cannabis licensee. I own Puff and Farm. I'm one of the founders of that farm, and we produce sun-grown organic cannabis that's grown with all natural ingredients in the soil, and so all the products that we grow are made for everybody, patients, not patients, you name it. Let's see. And so I guess I identify as both a doctor, a patient, and an advocate. I've been a patient for over 20 years, and I've been a doctor for about 3 years, so I've been a patient much longer. And I've also been an advocate my whole life. I started smoking cannabis as a young teenager, and I'm not gonna give you a number because it would be scandalous, but maybe not among this crowd. And so I love cannabis, I love helping people with cannabis, and I love growing it. And yeah, that's who I am.
My name is Liz Blaze, and I call myself a pollinator. Basically have started working in cannabis behind the counter at a dispensary, so I identify myself as an activist and a patient. Have kind of worked my way through the supply chain along a lot of different connections in cannabis, and that's where I find myself most comfortable is connecting dots. As a patient, I have had to deal with a few things, including most recently cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome. So piecing together some unknown dots on that, getting to work with folks in the community up in the Pacific Northwest, like the folks on the panel, to find some answers for that. So.
Hi, I'm Madeline Martinez. I am on the board of directors of NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. I'm actually one of the first Kaiser patients in Oregon, which is really exciting. I went in there, they told me no, and I said, well, why not? And I educated them, and they had to accept that fact. Once I went and challenged them, I said, here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna go outside and pay, and then you're gonna reimburse me. They said, no, here's your card. 2 weeks later. So that was really, I thought, impressive, because they hadn't given anyone a card. They said, oh no, it's against our rules. And I also opened the world famous Cannabis Cafe in 2009, the first cafe of its kind in the United States, which is really exciting, and I plan to reopen it because currently I am one of the chief petitioners of the Legalization Justice Act, and we are the Oregon Justice League. And we're excited because we want to put Oregon donation on, we want to make it legal for cannabis consumers. And so the whole thing is just thrilling. Now, currently we're asking for donations to help us to get this baby going. And that's that. And then I'll tell you more about myself later.
Hi, I'm Brian Stone. I'm a patient, an activist, and I've had the honor with interacting with physicians who have helped with me with both. So I've been a patient for about 15 years, and I have been involved with trying to change and help change marijuana laws in this state for about 10 years. And like I said, I had the opportunity to really see the symbiosis between my needs and had the opportunity to work with some wonderful physicians. Big shout out to Dr. Agrawal out here, who's been an inspiration to so many of us here and given us such a foundation of support and understanding, and you've been crucial, Doctor. Really appreciate it. So lots of stories to tell, but in the end it takes patients stepping up and activists joining them. I find that most activists are patients of some sort or very closely tied to patients. We need to keep educating each other, because a lot of doctors I know still need education, and certainly we're continuing to learn from our physician friends.
I'm Dr. Karyamet Alif. I'm a doctor and a patient and an advocate, and I trained in medicine and anesthesia at Stanford, and then left that part of medicine to do research and development in botanical medicines about 30-some years ago. And so I basically went from working at Stanford to working in the Amazon rainforest, and had some interesting experiences there. I wanted everyone to have the opportunity to see the symbiosis between doctors and patients and activists, and recognize that without activists, the patients wouldn't be able to be patients, and the doctors wouldn't be able to learn how to be doctors for cannabis patients. And so we really owe a lot to the people who either actively were activists or just by simple civil disobedience. And as a patient, I've used it just to treat myself with various attitude problems and physical problems as well. And as a doctor, as a scientist, there's nothing in the world more fascinating to me than cannabis, the endocannabinoid system, and how it can change the world.
Thank you. The first question I have for the panel is, right now, snapshot, is it the patients educating the doctors, or the doctors educating the patients? Where's that line, and where are we on some of those? Anyone have any thoughts? Please go ahead.
Sure, I'd like to start. Medicine was never designed so that doctors would need to be the ones to educate patients. There's always supposed to be a symbiosis there. What a doctor is somebody who spent a lot of time learning from a lot of different patients, and then what you learn from a lot of different people, you can share with any individual who comes in, because you may have seen 100 people with something going on similar to that person. It's not that one person is more knowledgeable than the other, but it's just a way of gathering information. And so right now, the patients and the activists have a lot more experience with cannabis than most of the doctors are willing to at least admit to, because of some regulatory confusion as part of being humans in the modern time. But aside from that, if this was an older time in medicine, then they would be fairly equally well informed. So yeah, the physicians need a lot of help. I mean, other than geniuses like Sunil, who knows a lot about everything, but most of your average doctors need somebody to really help them understand the benefits of cannabis as medicine.
I think that's kind of an ongoing thing, patients educating doctors and vice versa. But what I think we really need to educate are our legislators, because they are the ones who have been presented with sensible cannabis reform, both medically and certainly modifications to the existing recreational system, and they have been rejected. So that's where the education, that's where the pressure needs to be. In the old days, we'd say, bring on the wheelchairs and the crutches when we're testifying, because the patients underline what people who don't look sick. I mean, I look pretty good, but you'd never know. So the point is that we really need to make that a major point of focus ongoing. And the LCB, because now they can pass off issues to each other. The LCB being the Liquor Control Board here in Washington. You guys don't have that evil doom in Oregon.
I don't know what we have in Oregon. I don't know.
Is it what? It sure is.
Okay. My experience with doctors has been, unlike Sunil, who's personable and, he's one-on-one with you. He doesn't act like he's a genius. And I've had that bad experience with doctors who think they know everything about everything. And I went in there, I did an experiment. I got high and I had my husband drive me to Kaiser, and they were taking care. I was a patient for blood pressure, and I went in there, and the doctor came and he says, your blood pressure looks fantastic. You are doing such a wonderful job. Whatever it is you're doing, continue doing it. And I said, well, doctor, and I pulled out my papers for marijuana. And I said, well, doctor, that's when you say that. I brought my paperwork for you to sign for me to get a medical marijuana card, because that's what I did before I got here. I smoked a joint. And my blood pressure's down, you said, and so did the nurse. And he went, what? And I said, yes, I smoked a joint, and my husband drove me because I don't smoke and drive. And he said, how did you get in here? And I said, what? I simply signed up for an appointment with you, doctor, so you could sign my card. And he said, this appointment is over, and I'm gonna say that I counseled you on drug abuse. And I said, well, that wouldn't be true, doctor. And he said, and he just puffed and left. And then I went out to go complain about it, and I found him telling me, how the hell did she get in here? So that was my experience with Kaiser. I went and complained, and I said, you know, I'm gonna complain, I'm gonna go to another physician, and you're gonna reimburse me for it. They said, no, I got my Kaiser card. And I had to pay $35 annually for that card. And I think it's